Yeah.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Indie Football Podcast episode number 67. Today we have with us uh, Anukar sir.
नहीं नहीं तो ये यार आज नहीं because I know you presented very well लेकिन आज प्रेम देश पांडे is on the podcast
Sure.
तो प्रेम भाई आज आप start करो sorry दोई I love you man but come on आज
More
प्रेम
than
भाई has
happy.
to start it हाँ हाँ
हाय गाइस, मैं हूँ प्रेम देशपांडे. आप मुझे जानते होंगे एज प्रेम टॉक्स बॉल ऑन इंस्टाग्राम एंड आई एम रियली थ्रिल्ड टू बी हियर विद अनुकर्ष एंड द्वैपायन ऑन द इंडी फुटबॉल पॉडकास्ट. तो चलो दोस्तों, कुछ बातें करते हैं यार फुटबॉल की.
ऑफ कोर्स प्रेम भाई, मुझे याद है जैसे कि अनुकर्ष ने आपको अभी ये रिकॉर्डिंग शुरू होने से पहले कहा था कि मैंने और अनुकर्ष ने और हमारी पूरी टीम ने, नाउ वी आर अ टीम ऑफ 8 to 9 पीपल वर्किंग डेली ऑन द पॉडकास्ट. आपके बारे में हमने आपके रील्स को काफी बेंचमार्क यूज करके आज तक आपके बारे में काफी बात किया. सो इट इज रियली अ बिग डील फॉर अस टू हैव यू ऑन विद अस ऑन आवर पॉडकास्ट टुडे. एंड अनुकर्ष भाई, इवन मोर बिगर डील फॉर यू बिकॉज आप भी सारा हेडेक लेते हो in terms of planning the reels, editing the reels, so it kind of is some sort of a dream come true for us, right?
Absolutely, man. But before we start this podcast, so प्रेम भाई मुझे एक चीज कहनी है. आज मैं अम्मी को थैंक्स भी बोलना चाहता हूँ पर मैं अम्मी से गुस्सा हो गया. I'll tell you why. मैं अम्मी को
Yeah.
थैंक्स इसलिए बोलता हूँ because प्रेम भाई is here with us. पर मैं अम्मी से गुस्सा इसलिए हूँ because मैंने प्लान कर रखा था सुबह से कि चाहे आज 15 डिग्री टेम्परेचर हो रहा हो मैं लिवरपूल की जर्सी पहनूंगा just to incite अम्मी because he was gonna join us in the podcast. तो अब मेरा वो वाला ड्रीम तो चले गया. So yeah, I have mixed emotions right now. But प्रेम भाई like जैसे कहते हैं ना कि हमने किसी बच्चे को बड़ा होते हुए देखा है. फॉर मी आई हैव सीन यू ग्रो एज अ क्रिएटर. आपके मैंने हजारों फॉलोअर्स पे देखा है, 2000 3000 4000. एंड मैंने ये भी एस्टैब्लिश किया एज आई टोल्ड यू बिफोर द पॉडकास्ट कि आई एम वन ऑफ योर टारगेट ऑडियंसेस बिकॉज मुझे आपके एड्स बहुत दिखते थे. एंड अगेन लाइक ग्रेट कंटेंट यू पुट आउट. पर सबसे पहले मैं आपसे पूछूंगा, एक आपका कंटेंट पीस है जिसमें आपने इंडियन फुटबॉल की बात की है कि यार बिकॉज यू क्रिएट अ लॉट ऑफ कंटेंट अराउंड इंडियन फुटबॉल बट वी हैव टॉक्ड अबाउट कि क्या कर सकते हैं इंडियन फुटबॉल का कि इतना मतलब समझ नहीं आ रहा बिकॉज इगोस्ट मैच का आपने उस टाइम एग्जांपल दिया था when जब काफी प्लेयर्स ना टर्न अप नहीं हुए थे. तो how do you see the current Indian football scenario and for a creator like you how do you think we can help to build a footballing culture in India? सबसे पहले क्वेश्चन मुझे यही है.
Yeah, man, great question. So, see, I feel like this is the best time to be alive if you're an Indian football fan. Like genuinely, मतलब आगे भी हम कल की मैच जो कुवैत के अगेंस्ट हम जीते इन द फॉर द वर्ल्ड कप क्वालिफायर्स, उसकी तो आगे बात
Yeah.
करेंगे. बट in terms of the other stuff also that is happening now, ISL is already in its 10th season and particularly national team के साथ जो अभी चल रहा है with Igor's team match doing so well. और शुरू में if you remember when he had actually come in, the run was not that great at the start, but he actually stuck with his philosophy and now we are actually seeing the results of that. So as an Indian football fan यार, this is the best time to be alive. And as creators particularly यार, मेरे को याद है अभी recently एशियन गेम्स के लिए इंडियन टीम को नहीं भेजने वाले थे. ठीक है, ये एक सीन हुआ था, बट आई सॉ myself and so many of the other, you know, even bigger creators, they actually made videos and I'd like to believe that that did play a massive role in the Indian football team actually going to China and competing. हालांकि हम वहाँ पे group stage में बाहर हो गए, but that's okay. The important thing was to make sure that we get those games under our belt with the Asian Cup etc. coming up. तो उस हिसाब से मुझे लगता है कि एक क्रिएटर या एक बंदा कुछ करे, आई एम नॉट रियली श्योर दैट कैन क्रिएट दैट रिपल. लेकिन जब 25 लोग साथ में करते हैं, साथ में अपनी ऑडियंस को अवेयर करते हैं और फैंस साथ में जुड़ते हैं, एंगेज करते हैं, लाइक करते हैं, कमेंट करते हैं, तो मुझे लगता है कि उससे बहुत बड़ा फर्क पड़ सकता है. एंड इंडियन फुटबॉल, लाइक आई सेड यार, आई थिंक इट्स हैड अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग कस्प अभी. पिछले 2 सीजन से मैं बोलूंगा 2022-23 एंड 23-24 जो शुरू हो चुका है, आई थिंक दैट देयर इज नेवर रियली बीन as much excitement for an Indian football season as there has been this time, because of course Asian Cup आ रहा है, अभी qualifiers भी हम खेल रहे हैं, जो हमने एक मैं of course there's a long way to go, ये preliminary round है, ये अगर हम even if we finish in the top 2 there's another group stage that we get into, so it's a long way away from the World Cup. लेकिन who's to say that it's not possible यार. And also मैं अभी recently Mumbai City FC, you guys must know, they played Al Hilal in Mumbai. So they are playing in the AFC Champions League, right? तो जब अब ये एक ऐसी टीम है सऊदी की जिन्होंने काफी सारे बड़े प्लेयर्स खरीद रखे हैं, कुछ 1800 करोड़ रुपए की टीम है उनकी। अब काफी सारे जो प्लेयर्स इंडिया जो मुंबई सिटी एफसी में खेल रहे, फॉर एग्जांपल राहुल भेके हो गया या लालिंजवाला चांगटे, जो लोग who aren't who obviously come up through the ranks, or they've seen these people, चाहे Ruben Neves हो, Mitrovic हो, Neymar हो, who didn't come but he's still part of that team. उन्होंने टेलीविजन पे देखा होगा उनको और सोचा होगा कि भाई पता नहीं हम इनके खिलाफ मतलब कभी हमारे पाथ क्रॉस हो भी सकते हैं या नहीं, because Indian football we've never really associated it with the best in the world. And halaki we are still a long way from there. I feel like the fact that we're even rubbing shoulders with these guys now
is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, of course, it's like we have come a long way. There's still a long way to go, लेकिन यार अभी फिलहाल I feel like it's the best that we can hope for.
अब एक मेरा एक फॉलोअप क्वेश्चन है आपसे, प्रेम भाई, आपने इंटरेस्टिंग पॉइंट बोला वेयर लाइक यू टॉक्ड अबाउट क्रिएटर्स कि हाउ उस टाइम जो क्रिएटर्स ने कंटेंट क्रिएट किया था, एंड इवन आई रेजोनेट हियर कि काफी क्रिएटर्स ने उस टाइम कंटेंट बनाया था, हमारे फॉर्मर गेस्ट्स ये जीशान भाई, टॉप फुटबॉल एचडी में यामन देखिए वगैरह। बट उस टाइम एक कंट्रोवर्सी में एक चीज इंटरेस्टिंग हुई, एंड आई वांट टू नो योर व्यूज ऑन इट, कि पीटी उषा मैम जो थी उन्होंने बोला था कि उनको लगता है बिकॉज इंडिया इज नॉट अमंग द टॉप कंट्रीज इन एशिया, तो इन टर्म्स ऑफ फुटबॉल तो उनको शायद नहीं जाना चाहिए। हैविंग सेड दैट, अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल वर ब्लेमिंग पीटी उषा, बट पर्सनली, एंड आई माइट बी रियली रॉन्ग, बट एंड आई एम नॉट ट्राइंग टू मेक अ कंट्रोवर्शियल एंगल हियर, पर मुझे लगता है कि स्पोर्ट्स पर्संस को ना शायद as a face बनाया जाता है just to deliver the bad news, because personally I don't see कि कोई sports person किसी और sports person को grow नहीं करने देगा जब वो when he or she himself or herself has gone through so much. So do you think there's like it's the apathy of our times कि no wonder how much we are trying with Indian football कि players on paper they are able to play with the likes of Mitrovic from Al Hilal. The fact remains कि when the bureaucracy kind of overshadows the problems, the bureaucracy overshadows the good things that happens in Indian football.
Yes. Unfortunately, I think yes, because see, यार क्या है ना कि एक तरह से I mean just to play devil's advocate here, I feel like see who's delivering the news, that is one thing, but like you said, I don't think that we need to focus on that too much, because ultimately see PT Usha is not the only one who's taking decisions there. So there's obviously an entire team that they've come up with that decision. So of course there would have been a boardroom meeting जहाँ पर ये चीजें discuss हुई होगी. PT Usha might have been a significant part of that, but it's not just PT Usha. So similarly, I feel like यार ये decisions, just to play devil's advocate, somewhere अगर आपको किसी चीज में merit नहीं दिखता as an administrator, तो आप वो डिसीजन नहीं, फॉर एग्जांपल अभी रिसेंटली जब हम इनफैक्ट एशियन गेम्स के लिए there's a lot of ISL clubs who didn't release their players for because वो कह रहे थे कि भाई हमारे ISL के मैचेस के साथ क्लैश हो रहा है, तो but the point is that if you want to get the best Indian team for the Asian games, पहले ही सारे under 23 खेलते हैं except for 2 players, right? So we had to have our best team, लेकिन काफी सारे ISL clubs ने मना कर दिया, तो अब did that harm us? Yes, it did. लेकिन ultimately there is a lot of money riding on that the ISL clubs have invested in these players also, और वो लोग फिर ये सोच रहे हैं कि यार अगर बाकी क्लब्स नहीं करने दे रहे तो हम ही क्यों करें सिर्फ, तो फिर we will be at a bigger disadvantage. तो सारे मिलके अगर आप एक रूल फॉर्म कर दो तो बात अलग हो जाती है, वरना if they are well within their right not to let the players go, then मतलब it's not good for the national team of course, but you can see why they might not want to release their players, because उनको अपने क्लब की पड़ी है, right? So similarly with the Asian games as well, I guess for whatever reason, I'm not sure why exactly because this was it was the worst time I feel to even think about not letting the Indian team go for the Asian games, because हमने already इंटरकॉन्टिनेंटल कप जीत लिया, सैफ कप जीत लिया, तो वी वर ऑन अ फैंटास्टिक रन एंड स्पेशली विद आवर वर्ल्ड कप, मतलब हम वर्ल्ड कप में नहीं है लेकिन एशियन कप इज लाइक आवर वर्ल्ड कप मैन. The best teams from Asia play in the Asian Cup and we are going to be playing them. तो ऐसे में एशियन गेम्स के लिए nobody could really, which is why I think there was such a massive backlash कि समझ नहीं आ रहा था कि क्यों मना कर दिया यार, जबकि अभी was the worst time to you know let anything come in the way of Igor's team match and his boys because of the kind of run that they were on. But yeah, I mean these things are ultimately see क्या है ना कि I mean not to be diplomatic but I feel कि आप politics और sport को आप एक तरह से अलग नहीं कर सकते, right? As fans हम टीवी देखते हैं, मैच देखते हैं टीवी के ऊपर, लेकिन there are so many decisions that go on behind the scenes जो कि administrators के ही हाथ में होते हैं, and I mean we can just hope that they take decisions which are not to the football team's long term detriment and in fact can actually benefit them.
Interesting that you say that, but I would say that सबसे ज़्यादा interested मैं आज अभी आपसे ये पूछने में हूँ कि how did your entire journey of making content begin? जैसे कि अनुकर्ष भाई ने यहाँ पे बोला कि we have, especially अनुकर्ष भाई has followed your journey since your early days, but then let's like फॉर एग्जाम्पल वी डू अंडरस्टैंड जब हम हमारे YouTube वॉच अलॉन्ग्स करते हैं, देर आर काफी सारे लोग अभी हमें नहीं देखते हैं, बट जो 4-5 लोग आके नीचे कमेंट सेक्शन में टाइप करते हैं कि यू नो इट्स जस्ट नाइस टू सी यू गाइस डू दिस, एंड वी समटाइम्स गेट मेनी क्वेश्चंस अराउंड how do we start, and मैं तो आपको if me and Anukarsh are being very honest with you, like the reason we have a team of 8-9 people now is because those people were someone who wanted to start something of their own and then they found us who were you know already starting something like this. So
Right.
आपको what are some key lessons or how has been the entire journey of Prem Talks Football, the genesis, and how is it going right now?
Yeah, so यार कंटेंट क्रिएशन की मेरी जो जर्नी रही है ना वो that has been all of probably 6 or 7 months, believe it or not. मुझे खुद को कभी-कभी लगता है कि maybe it's been longer, but it actually hasn't. I started I think in March or April of 2023. But even before that मेरा actually जो background है वो television का है. मैं I worked in television behind the scenes also. And I've also been a commentator, so I am a football commentator, so I've covered like 3 seasons of the I-League. So actually I come from that background, but I got to say here, credit where it's due. Have you heard of this creator called Udayan on Money? He's a finance creator.
Oh no, I haven't.
Yeah. So he is he you know he's a fantastic finance. So he's a cousin of mine. And he started creating content around finance last year, and he was the one to actually tell me that you know you worked in television, you've done your writing, you do your editing, and you know आप commentary भी करते हो, सब कुछ कर रहे हो, तो why don't you try dipping your feet into the content space also, because he saw some fantastic results with content creation and it opened up a lot of avenues for him, and he said that you know with the kind of stuff that you do, you'll be doing yourself a big injustice if you don't at least try this out seriously. So जहां तक मेरे कंटेंट क्रिएशन का सवाल है, मैंने YouTube में काफी, मैं शायद 2016 या 17 में मैंने you know I put out my first video, but I can't claim to have really done it too seriously, because as you guys know now, consistency is also very important, right? आप सोचोगे यार 2 हफ्ते कुछ करके फिर छोड़ दिया, बात नहीं बनती, किसी भी चीज में बात नहीं बनती, ये सिर्फ सोशल मीडिया नहीं है, बड़े लाइव की है, राइट? 2 हफ्ते करके कोई रिजल्ट नहीं आता किसी चीज में, so you have to be consistent with it. So I can't claim to have been consistent ever with YouTube, but particularly after my cousin Udayan, he gave me the talk, I said yeah, I actually got to take this seriously, man, and that's how I came up with Prem Talks Ball, and I said that reels are obviously still, I would say, since 2021, maybe they don't get as much traction as they did when reels first started, लेकिन अभी भी मेरे ख्याल से reels are the way to go, क्योंकि content consumption की बात करें तो ज्यादातर Instagram के ऊपर लोग बस reels scroll करते रहते हैं, right? So that's how it started. And commentary की जब बात आती है तो मैं actually English में करता हूँ, लेकिन मुझे ऐसा लगा कि बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग हैं जो इंडिया में अभी शायद they haven't really been watching football so for how long have you guys been watching football?
Anuka should
Uh,
answer first.
I have been watching it for the last 17 years.
Yeah, and how about you?
The last 4 years since the COVID happened.
या सो एग्जैक्टली देयर यू गो सो बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग होंगे जो बहुत टाइम से फुटबॉल देख रहे हैं आई वुड लाइक टू बिलीव दैट मैं उनमें से हूँ लेकिन ऐसे बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो बहुत टाइम से नहीं भी देख रहे हैं एंड a lot of this the content that we consume because Indian football की जब बात आती है even there but particularly with the European leagues etc a lot of that content is consumed in English right मुझे लगा कि काफी सारे जो हिंदी बोलने वाले लोग हैं जो शायद इंग्लिश नहीं समझते या समझते भी है तो they don't necessarily want to consume the content in English मुझे लगा कि I want to tap into that market and वो यार एक जब मैंने शुरू किया करना तो मुझे रियलाइज हुआ कि इसमें मजा भी अलग है बिकॉज वो देसी फील ही अलग होती है राइट आप कम्युनिकेट करते हो किसी के साथ और इट्स लाइक यू आर हैविंग अ कॉन्वर्सेशन you know over a chai with a friend of yours कि आज फुटबॉल में ये हुआ वो हुआ so I actually kind of liked that flavor of content so which is why I stuck with it and in terms of the kind of content I make I feel like I just gravitate towards stories यार मतलब I like a good football story तो I just मतलब अगर आप मुझे कहानियां सुनाओगे इंडियन फुटबॉल की या इवन यूरोपियन फुटबॉल की प्लेयर्स की टीम्स की कोचेस की किसी की भी तो मतलब पूरी रात निकल जाएगी और मैं सुनता रहूंगा और मैं आपको भी सुनाता रहूंगा so I feel like that's the kind of content that I really like also so that मैं वही सोच के फिर मेरा content बनाता हूँ hoping that you know if other people are also liking that content तो फिर मतलब मेरे लिए सोने पे सुहागा है.
Nice.
Of course, it is big, and I also wanted to ask you about आपने अभी पूरा एक हमें explain किया how you felt there is this need to introduce the sport to the Hindi speaking audience, which I'll be honest is the large part of our country, and you know
Yeah.
जब मैं और अनुकर्ष भी यहाँ बैठ के हम ये सोचते हैं like how do we really put a footballing culture in India, and even though Anukarsh sir here is someone who has been supporting Liverpool for 17 years, he has watched a lot of football. I am someone who brings a lot of formative insights into the game, as in अगर आप हमारे ट्विटर देखेंगे then I would put out the most basic stat that you know if in this match someone scores this goal, it is the first time that this team has done this thing to this team at this venue for the first time in 20-25 years, which is something that I feel is important to bring that relevance or context to people, especially who are watching it for the first time. Otherwise like
Right.
आप अगर किसी को फुटबॉल दिखाओ तो ही विल फील कि ठीक है 90 मिनट्स से लोग like people are just kicking the ball, so what's the point? So I think there's a lot of जैसे कि आपने बोला storytelling, which is a big part of football content creation. But one of the another questions that I wanted to ask, and Anukash will remember that we had also asked this to some of our previous guests, is that आपने when you make content, and of course हमने आपके अलग अलग reels के content देखे हैं, and I feel being a Bengali I feel I can proudly say that आपके दो सबसे बड़े reels are the ones where you spoke on Kolkata football, Kolkata derbies, and the Mohan Bagan journey, and also that's got more than 100k views. But आप जब reel बनाने को बैठते हैं, do you decide that this is the particular target audience I am looking at, or it is a much more organic thing ki aaj today I feel like given this match happened yesterday I should speak on this and jo chale chalega?
Yeah, so sometimes I plan. So there's content which I know is going to be evergreen. For example, the videos that you're referring to, say 3 facts about the Kolkata derby, or how Mohan Bagan was formed and things like. मुझे पता है कि ये change नहीं होने वाला. 10 साल बाद भी अगर किसी को जाके देखना है, it's going to stay the same, right? Because history obviously is not going to change, and I think that you know Mohan Bagan का fan base कहीं नहीं जा रहा. It's going to जब तक इंडिया है तब तक मोहन बगान का फैन बेस रहने वाले. So those kind of videos I can plan for. to say that okay, these are the things that I want to do. So there's ideas that I list down, and as and when I have to, I shoot it and I upload them. But yes, there's a lot of things that I also like to flirt with in terms of what is happening in the world of football today. Like Everton के 10 पॉइंट काट दिए गए अभी फाइनेंशियल फेयर प्ले की वजह से. सो मेरा दिमाग चल रहा है कि भाई अब अगला रील जो बनाना है वो it should be something, there should be something around this. So I think it can be a mix of both, relevant as well as evergreen.
You heard it first at the Indie Football Podcast, Everton वाली बात.
Yeah. And also in terms of target audience के बारे में personally मैं इतना नहीं सोचता हूँ. इनफैक्ट मुझे कुछ लोगों के कमेंट्स भी आए हैं मेरे इसके ऊपर कि there's a at least I mean even now you get it sometimes, but like पहले शुरुआत में there's a reason bro you're not going viral. होता है ना वो keyboard कहते हैं keyboard warriors. Yeah, they said कि there's a reason your videos are not working. It's because you're not doing the right topics, this that, why you talking about things that are not relevant, things like that. So मेरा yeah, go on.
I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but like and I mean हमें YouTube पक्का इसको 18+ कर देगा बोलने के लिए, but that is utter bullshit, man, seriously, because I have seen your reels and I really love how you get into the character. Like जो FIFA का president है ना Infantino, उसने बोला था ना एक उसके बाद famous speech है कि today I feel वो क्या बोलते हैं African, today I feel Asian. तो आपको मतलब when I look at it, like मैंने आपकी मोहम्मद साला वाली रील देखी थी, उसमें like लगता है कि today you feel मतलब वो लगता है कि लिवरपूल fan, today I feel like a corporate. When you are saying about Arsenal, today I feel like a gunner, वो लगता है because you get into that character, no, like an actor does in a Bollywood movie or in a Hollywood movie. वो दिखता है कि you are so much invested into it. And even like what I really love about your content, like I'm personally telling as a fan of Prem Talks Ball here, कि like Hindi commentary, like the way you present, I really love that because उस time Doi was asking a question, so I didn't interrupt him. But see, I'll give you an example. Like मेरी life पे जो cricket जो मैंने देखा है, it's divided into two eras. एक है pre Doipan Mukherjee era, जिसमें I used to hear to the Ravi Shastris of the world कि India win the World Cup, ये वो दुनिया भर का. एक पोस्ट दोईपान मुखर्जी एरा है कि जब ये आया मतलब पॉडकास्ट वगैरह से स्टार्ट किया, फिर से स्टार्ट वाचिंग क्रिकेट बिकॉज ऑफ हिम, एंड आई रियलाइज कि हिंदी कमेंट्री इतनी फन है बिकॉज ऑनेस्टली जिस तरीके से अभी मोहम्मद क्या वर्ल्ड कप में बोलता है कि गेंद ने बोला आसमान को कि चलो सैर करते हैं, लाइक हु सेज दैट ऑनेस्टली, बट
it's fun.
Damn entertaining.
Absolutely, man. I really feel because at the end of the day, 90% of our base is like which isn't very fluent in English when it comes to the football fans. Yeah. And it's important कि कोई हिंदी में समझाए, कोई हिंदी में बताए उनको, although English is impeccable too, but how you present it, it's what's important, because honestly हिंदी दैनिक जागरण उतना अच्छे से कवर नहीं करता है कि मोहम्मद साले की लाइफ में क्या चल रहा है, या फिर like a Hindi newspaper doesn't cover it that well. But the Times of India does it very well when it comes to footballing content. So what you are doing is a very differential sort of a content. And honestly, from me and like Doipan side also, it's something we really applaud because हर कोई नहीं कर रहा है यार. एंड ऑनेस्टली हम लोग एक पॉडकास्ट रन कर रहे हैं, मैं सॉरी एक थोड़ी रैंट पे जा रहा हूँ इस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम पे, बट मुझे पता है कितना मुश्किल है क्रिएटिंग फुटबॉलिंग कंटेंट हियर इन दिस कंट्री एंड टू मेक इट डिफरेंशियल, टू क्रिएट इट कंसिस्टेंटली. प्रेम भाई, I cannot say Prem नाम है आपका because like the Prem Chopra style, but there's a reason there's a Desh and Deshpande here because you are doing something for the Indian footballing culture.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, guys. This means a lot to me.
Yeah. But हाँ, आप जो बात कर रहे थे the entire content journey of people also coming in and not giving the best comments, and then उसके बाद how did you feel that you are in the right path then?
Yeah, so I mean so initial thought to yeah, of course, I mean as a human being it's yeah, come on man, what are you talking, गुस्सा आता है, लेकिन when you get a few of those, you kind of start to develop a thick skin and you realize who's actually saying it just because they have nothing else to do, and who's actually giving you productive feedback. But my reply to that was always that the idea is not really necessarily to go viral. Yes, nobody's saying no to that. I'd go viral. It'd be great. But the idea is also to, first and foremost, is to tell some interesting stories. तो वो मतलब जो मेरा जो the thought in mind that I have when I'm actually scripting something is not, it's never real. I mean, and I don't claim that this is the right way to go about it. Okay, I don't know. But personally, for me, when I sit on my desk and when I'm going to think about a reel, that I want to script, it's not necessarily that यार ये viral जाएगी या नहीं, या ये बनाना है because अब ये viral जा सकता है. But it's if I find, like I put out a reel a couple of days back about this footballer called Keane Lewis, who's playing in the I League. I didn't really put it out thinking that I want this to necessarily go viral, but I knew his journey and I thought that this is really interesting, and so I thought that this is something that my audience might appreciate. Because I mean, let's be honest, kafi sare, I mean, there is a Sunil Chetri, there is a Baichung Bhutia, there is a Sandesh Jingan, but then there are a lot of other footballers who don't get anywhere near that kind of attention. So I felt like if there is an interesting story out there, I want to cover it, whether or not it goes viral, whether I'm targeting an audience, whether, I mean, वो देखा जाएगा आगे. लेकिन अगर मुझे लगता है कि इंटरेस्टिंग है तो मैं अपनी इंस्टिंक्ट के साथ जाके मुझे बनानी है.
Exactly. I think that is also why certain things that even in I and Anukarsh sir also sometimes have these conversations that हम जो 2-3 हफ्तों से ये particular segment कर रहे हैं, it might not probably given us the most likes or shares, but then something like I feel people like us, and I'm sure Prem bhai you would agree, we are doing this to of course get some sort of external validation. It will be great, but I don't think that will define us. Like I say this openly, like I am doing this podcast with Anukar sir and with this team of 10 people to of course maybe someday make a full-time business out of it, but I also know what this podcast means to the 8 people who are working with us right now. It is usually Ame I think is the oldest guy, so आप उसको जाके बोल सकते हो कि आप कि वो IFP में सबसे बुढ़ा आदमी है, but then overall
I'll tell you one thing about Zoe Bhai. ना होता है हर किसी की एज मॉक करता है पॉडकास्ट में. Like I am just 24. So like he will always make me look so old, and same he does with Amir for that matter. And like
I feel old, guys. I just turned 27, so I guess I'm the oldest, or is Amay I think is elder to me. I think.
Ame turned 28 this year, so yeah, I think. But then, yeah, Prem bhai, and another thing that I wanted to ask, now that we have gotten so much into detail into the content creation zone, is that क्या आपको लगता है at some point of time, a certain creator who has sort of made it or like had a considerable following in a particular social media app, say Instagram, do you think he or she should consolidate it further by having more Instagram attention, or do you feel it is useful for that particular person to leverage his Instagram following and also spread it out to different social media apps, Twitter, Facebook, or do you think it's an independent choice कि भाई बंदे के ऊपर है, उसको जो करना है करो?
I think that I don't know about Twitter or Facebook, but for sure, if there is a sizable audience that you've got on Instagram, then YouTube is definitely something to take seriously. Yeah. Because YouTube की जो audience है ना, मतलब I can't claim to have been there, done that yet. But this would be my plan of action. I can tell you now. Like probably, once I have certain targets in mind. Once I achieve those for Instagram, I'm definitely going to focus more on YouTube, is because YouTube, even though I'm not saying this as a creator, but as a consumer, मैं YouTube पे ज़्यादा time spend करता हूँ, because YouTube की जो audience है ना, मुझे लगता है कि ज़्यादा serious होती है, because you're spending more time and you're going there to actually get some kind of information or get entertained for a longer period. I mean, I know of course YouTube Shorts is a thing now. But YouTube के long form content I think is here to stay यार, और consumption के लिए मतलब it's my go-to. I mean, I spend a lot more time on YouTube than I do on Instagram, and I know कि शायद that's not necessarily what say people between 13 and maybe 25 are doing today. Maybe they are spending more time on Instagram and Reels, but YouTube की जो जगह है, मुझे लगता है कि एक solid audience के लिए मुझे लगता है that can be far more rewarding in the long term. So I definitely like pay attention to YouTube as well. And instead, I think short form content can be a good gateway to long form content. So
Yeah.
I guess if there's because आप देखोगे कि क्या है ना कि जो YouTube पे जो लोग already who have a decent following on YouTube, who have a decent subscriber base और जिनकी audience है YouTube पे, उनके आप Instagram numbers भी देखोगे ना तो decent होंगे काफी, but it's not necessarily the other way around. जिसकी
हाँ.
Instagram पे फॉलोइंग अच्छी है necessarily YouTube, because YouTube की I think audience एक थोड़ी serious audience है जिसके लिए I think you know you got to invest that much time and effort into YouTube to actually I think see that growth. So I think YouTube and Instagram would be the two hottest platforms right now. And Twitter, I mean I actually don't consume too much content on Twitter, but I think Twitter is my go-to for any न्यूज इन द वर्ल्ड. मतलब कुछ भी नया, आई थिंक जैसे अगर यूएस का प्रेसिडेंट अगर कोई चेंज हो गया ना तो सबसे पहले टीवी पे या न्यूज़पेपर सबसे पहले ट्विटर पे जाएगा वो, राइट? सो ट्विटर मैं उसके लिए ज्यादा यूज करता हूँ. बट ट्विटर ऑल्सो ग्रेट. आई पर्सनली डोंट नो टू मच अबाउट हाउ यू कैन लेवरेज ट्विटर फॉर रेवेन्यू एंड थिंग्स लाइक दैट, बट आई थिंक यूट्यूब एंड इंस्टाग्राम फॉर श्योर फॉर विद ब्रांड्स, एंड यूट्यूब के साथ तो एडसेंस भी है, ऑल्दो इंडिया में बहुत ज्यादा हाई नहीं है, लेकिन it's still something.
That's interesting actually. Because honestly, like आपने वाली बात बहुत सही कही, because YouTube पे the type of content, like a lot of people thought when Instagram reels came around that YouTube थोड़ा सा ना मतलब phase out हो जाएगा with time, but it has gone to show कि that long form content is still there and people want to actually put in time to see the podcast and see the long form sort of content. But प्रेम भाई एक क्वेश्चन है मेरा आपसे. जैसे आपने बताया कि यू आर अ कमेंटेटर आई लीग के टाइम पे, तो जैसे लाइक इवन व्हेन आई हैव ग्रोन अप एंड यू माइट रेजोनेट हियर कि लाइक आई लीग वाज द मेन लीग उस टाइम पे. ऑफ कोर्स जितना यंग दोईपाइन ऐड करता है वो पक्का ये बोलेगा आईएसएल जब के टाइम पे पैदा हुआ.
एनीवन रिमेंबर 2007-8 के टाइम आई लीग का मेन स्पॉन्सर कौन था?
ONGC.
Yes, it is ONGC because my father is head of corporate communications in ONGC, and that is why. But honestly, you know, I did not know that iLeague title sponsors ONGC till the time I had went to my master's college in Mumbai. They had this trophy जहाँ पे ONGC iLeague 2007 लिखा था. फिर मैंने आके घर पे आके बोला था कि you know पापा, you should आपको you like, because he's head of corporate communications, so sometimes he is involved around certain sponsorships for sports. And जैसे कि आपने सुना होगा ONGC, the PSU section does a lot considerably for sports. And the day when I understood iLeague, you know, has had ONGC as their top title sponsor, I thought, wow, it is something that was there at my house for so long, but my father never told me. Sorry, Anukar sir, you can continue.
Yeah, no, that's actually interesting, and it's a very poignant account Doipan gives of his dad, who has definitely done a wonderful work with ONGC. So anyway, प्रेम भाई मैं ये कह रहा था जैसे उस टाइम पे आई लीग यूज्ड टू बी द मेन लीग काफी सालों तक, एंड आई विल कंटिन्यू माय जोक हियर दैट दोईपाइन ऑफ कोर्स वुड से कि वो आईएसएल के टाइम पे पैदा हुआ है, जितना वो मुझे और आमिर को बुड्ढा दिखाता है पॉडकास्ट पे. तो लाइक व्हाट डू यू थिंक कि एज अ कमेंटेटर डूइंग इट फॉर for what was saying I-League. So how do you feel ki why I-League couldn't really ever get that sort of exposure with of course the ISL has. I know the money is the part of it, but जैसे एक fan base पहले डेम्पो का, मोहम्मदन स्पोर्टिंग का था, सालगोकार का था उस जमाने में, तो why do you think कि वो क्लब्स कभी nowhere near in heights तक पहुंच पाए जो अभी के क्लब्स कर पा रहे हैं?
I think the major part of it, if not entirely, although I'm tempted to think that it's entirely down to the investment, man. And I mean, as romantic football fans, I feel like जब पैसे की बात आती है तो हमें लगता है कि I mean पैसे से सक्सेस खरीद रहे कुछ clubs, things like that. But I feel like it's important, man, because ultimately, see, I personally, even though I-League is personally also for me. It was my first commentary gig, etc. So it's very close to my heart. But I do feel like it's the ISL which has changed the course of Indian football, and the reason is that it's actually given a lot of players a proper career. मतलब see, I-League में आप अगर uh, if you've played for only 2 or 3 or 4 seasons, काफी सारे players हैं उस time पे who are probably now working another job, right? And athletes यार should not have to do that, right? Unfortunately करना, अब जैसे अगर आपने इंडिया में क्रिकेट, अगर आपने 5 या 10 साल रणजी ट्रॉफी के लेवल पे आपने क्रिकेट खेला है, आई थिंक दैट यू कैन लिव अ decent enough life even if you've not played for India necessarily, because even रणजी के लेवल पे यार पैसा मतलब एक decent आपको मिल जाएगा. But I League में that unfortunately I don't think that that was ever the case. There were a few teams, a few players who would get paid, and pay का जो पूरा spectrum था वो I League में बहुत ही, even I mean that's okay I think, because I mean I was going to say there's a massive difference between, say, the highest paid and the lowest paid player, but I guess that will always be there. I mean, so you're not going to like a young player who's just come into the team is not going to be paid anywhere near, say, what Chetri or Jhingan earn. So that's fine. Lekin even the average income was very less in the I League. So the ISL has really changed with the investment that Reliance has made into this. I feel like Indian football को उस injection of investment की बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरत थी उस time पे, and that's I think really it यार. There's 2 or 3, I think 3 clubs which just solely because of the legacy, Mohun Bagan, East Bengal and Mohammedan Sporting, ये 3 clubs जो हैं वो चाहे आई लीग में खेल रहे हो, ISL में खेल रहे हो, या सिर्फ कोलकाता की स्टेट लीग में खेल रहे हो, वो तो हमेशा उनका फैन बेस कहीं नहीं जा रहा. बट ऑब्वियसली बाकी सारे क्लब्स के साथ इट्स नॉट नेसेसरीली द सेम. But I do feel like अगर if all of the clubs that Anukarsh you spoke about, with the Dempos and the Saga, because you're right, उनकी fan base बहुत बड़ी थी. Mahindra had I think decent enough fan base. So वो अगर शायद वो मौका मिलता कि उनको and see with money, it's not just the players and all of the ecosystem making money, but it's also about कि यार जो broadcast बनाया गया है, जो all of the peripherals get taken care of, right? टेलीविजन पे आप किस तरीके से मैच को प्रेजेंट कर रहे हो, ये सारी चीजों से बहुत ज्यादा फर्क पड़ता है. जैसे अभी अगर आप देखो with the I League and the camera quality and all that, अगर आप मैच देख रहे हो तो आपको मन ही नहीं करेगा शायद मैच देखने का. अगर आप बहुत बड़े फैन हो या आपका कोई भाई बहन खेल रहा है तो आप देखोगे. The reality is that, no, I mean, I'm saying that you have to make it a compelling, you have to make it into a proper product, right? If you want people to watch it. And the ISL, I think, has done a good job with that, which the I League, I think, as the years have gone by, I think they have a core fan base, because the OGs of Indian football, they still watch the I League. But other than that, अगर आप नई audience की बात कर रहे हो, या आप you want, I think it has to be a product. It has to be a proper product, which unfortunately over the years I League के साथ it's not really worked out.
Yeah, I feel that आपने जैसे कि बोला था about how it has to be a proper TV product, it's a great point, because अगर आप कल को अमे के साथ बात करेंगे and if you ask अमे to go back 11 months before in his life, जहां हमें अपने कॉलेज में स्पोर्ट्स लीग्स के बारे में बताते थे, one of the big plus points for a league was to whether or not it is good to watch on the TV, and even like the Pro Kabaddi League, for example, that does not have it does not have a massive stadium audience even in the 10th season, but it is so fast right now, so fun to consume, that it has really took off because of its fiery paced nature. And of course, there have been people like Gaurav Gala, who has been the head of ISL's broadcasting since 2014, who also had a TV commentary background similar to yours. So I thought it was relevant to mention this. But overall, आपको क्या लगता है, like, for someone now, like, I know we have slightly gone overboard with our time, but it has been such a compelling conversation, so I can't help but ask you this: that Indian football, AIFF, we had recently the secretary getting sacked, and different kinds of things. But let's focus on the positive side about what AIFF has planned and proposed with the 2047 vision. आप उसके बारे में बताइए. How much do you, first of all, what are your first thoughts, and how do you feel Indian football, not only the stakeholders but also the entire football ecosystem in India, getting shaped up on the basis of that vision 2047?
So I've actually elaborately gone through the Vision 2047 roadmap, and it looks great.
Yeah.
It does look great. And I don't want to, I'm not saying it to just caucus snook at the establishment to say that, ye to hamesha ka hai and things like that. But I think they both have to go hand in hand, right? I mean, you can have the best plan in the world, but ultimately it needs to be executed. But then on the flip side, you're going nowhere if you don't have a plan. So having a plan is the first step, and I think it's great. I think among the few things, they want a few million players registered, and there's 2047. 2023 में किया है 2047 तक का. So there's like 6 4-year plans that they have for 24 years, and 2026 तक का अभी प्लान है कि women's football के लिए भी उनको बहुत कुछ करना है. In terms of the coaching side also, they want 50,000 coaches with 50,000 people with coaching badges etc. तो अगर ये सारी चीजें execute हो गई तो यार मतलब क्या ही करना है फिर. और Indian football is there. Indian football is, yeah, I mean that, right, that's we're in utopia, right? We're in the perfect scenario. But ultimately I feel like it's a little too soon to judge. मतलब अगर कोई जैसे कोई सरकार आती है तो आप 2 महीने में तो आप नहीं बोल सकते कि यार अब तक सड़क नहीं बनी यार, अब तक ये नहीं, राइट? Like you have to give it some time. So जैसे 2023 में प्लान हुआ है, so let's see how it works out. I mean, I was kind of surprised with Shaji Prabhakaran getting sacked. I don't think anyone really saw it coming, but I feel like I hope that these decisions they don't hamper the long-term vision that's been put in place for Indian football. कि जो भी कोई नया बंदा भी जो आ रहा है उसको भी they should be on board with the plan, right? So yeah. I'm hoping for the best, and plan. I think it's a great plan, but it's too soon to say whether it's even it's going to be implemented properly or not.
Yeah, I think it has been a deeply insightful 40 odd minutes, Prem bhai. We will stay true to our promise of not taking your too much of your time, because I think it has been a great value add to all our audiences. And Anukar sir, I think it is one of the first ever episodes where we have not mentioned European football even once, right?
Yeah,
And it is
absolutely.
great actually, because it is something new for for people who have been following us for a long time.
But before
Nice.
we end this episode, आप वैसे कौन सी टीम को सपोर्ट करते हो यूरोपियन फुटबॉल में?
Yeah, even
I actually don't. Yeah, so you know how you were, to your point about how I kind of get into character. If I'm talking about Salah, then I sound like a Liverpool fan and things like. I think that kind of the reason that it comes across that way is because मैं किसी टीम को support नहीं करता हूँ, and कभी नहीं किया. In fact, the reason I started watching football is because of this golden boy called Fernando Torres, who had just joined. I mean, you would appreciate this, Anukarsh, because you're a Liverpool fan.
I am a fan of yours now, even more after hearing that.
Yeah, I mean, Torres was, and it's still not. I mean, he retired in 2019, but Torres के लिए जो मेरा प्यार है वो
मेरा first heartbreak था. मेरा first.
I still celebrate his birthday.
I'm saying this, मेरा ना मतलब इतने emotions आ जाते हैं. मेरा first heartbreak था life का Fernando Torres, because when he left Liverpool, he took away a part of me. And I think it was in 2009, मैंने Times of India में पढ़ा, because उस टाइम ना इतना football content show नहीं करते थे. एक show आता था ESPN पे, Sports Center करके, वो I used to watch very regularly 8 बजे अच्छे साल. Yeah, and उसके अलावा ना मतलब एक Times of India में आता था article, तो I saw this article, I was like, Torres चले गया. And I think it was like I couldn't sleep properly for a weekend. I think that is the heartbreak of my life that has affected me so much. अभी तक जब भी फर्नांडो टोरेस का नाम आता है, मैं ऐसा डूब जाता हूँ कि कैसे, क्यों, क्या जरूरत थी. So yeah, of course.
Yeah, so it's one of the, and I also feel, and I'm not saying it because I'm a Torres fan, but I genuinely feel like it's one of the biggest mysteries of in world football. Fernando Torres' decline from what he was at Liverpool. मतलब यार injuries हो सकती हैं, obviously.
Injury थी. He
I
had a
guess, I
dorsal
mean,
injury. हाँ.
yeah, he, and especially I think he had one knee injury जिसकी वजह से, you know, people say he lost his pace, this, that.
Exactly.
But yeah, even then I feel like it was not just his pace that left him. It was also just the enthusiasm, the way his body language was at Chelsea. It was just, it never really looked the same, and we saw glimpses of it again when he went back to his boyhood club Atletico Madrid. Because that's the only place really by that point, after 3.5 years at Chelsea, मेरे को लगा कि the only thing that can revive Torres even a little bit is if he goes back to Atletico Madrid, because he's so loved there, because he's an Atletico boy. We saw glimpses of that, but it never really, like at Liverpool he was magic, man. He was just magic.
It was, it was God's justice for a 10-year-old Anukash who had his first heartbreak. I think it was like, God's way of taking revenge with some supernatural powers.
But then I think we can go on and on all night with everything that we have to say when it comes to Indian football or Liverpool football, or when it comes to, as a matter of fact, for any kind of football. For now, I think it is a great way to conclude our first ever conversation with Prem Bhai. Thank you, Prem, for being so gracious with your time and effort, and of course, special mention to Ame Bhai to
हाँ.
really facilitate the entire process. Because प्रेम भाई, I'll be honest, मैं ज्यादा मेहनत करता नहीं हूँ. गेस्ट बुलाने में सारी मेहनत मेहनत अनुकर्ष सर करते हैं. It is Anukarsh sir who like goes on to people, reaches out to them. But thank you, Prem bhai, for taking out this time, and we look forward to having you on probably one of the YouTube watch alongs or the Instagram lives or the Twitter spaces that we do. And I must say that throughout your journey, we would definitely be there supporting you, because we do believe that all of us grow with whatever kind of collaborations we can get into. Thank you, Prem bhai. Take care.
Nice, pleasure is all mine. Yeah, thank you so much, and this was such a fun conversation.
Yes.
I'd be thrilled to like genuinely thrilled to do one of these again. उस वाले में शायद यूरोपियन फुटबॉल थोड़ा ज्यादा डिस्कस करेंगे.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Good night.
Thanks.